Uh, it's my honor to introduce Patricia Shafer to speak to us today. Patricia is a senior fellow for the Peace Education in Washington, D.C. based Alliance for Peace Building, which is a Rotary fellow. She's also a Rotary Positive Peace Activator and executive director of nonprofit NewGen Peacebuilders. On behalf of NewGen Peacebuilders, Patricia, along with Outward Bound Center for Peacebuilding, is a co-implementing partner for the Rotary Zones 33 and 34 Signature Initiative, Youth and Peace in Action, Engaging Young Community Peacebuilders. This is the largest local peace building initiative in the history of Rotary International. Patricia was chosen as a Rotary Peace Fellow based on her nonprofit work providing primary and secondary school education to students in South Sudan, Uganda, and Rwanda. Later, Patricia was nominated by the government of South Sudan for a UNESCO Prize for Girls and Women's Literacy. Previously, Patricia held senior positions in change management and communications in 2 global Fortune 100 companies. She holds an MSc in consulting and coaching for change, a joint venture of Oxford University in the United Kingdom and HEC France, beats the heck out of me what that is, but that's okay, and an MBA, Northwestern University Kellogg Graduate School of Management, and an MA for journalism from the Ohio State University. That's a long, wonderful biography, and so please join me in welcoming Patricia Shafer.
Hey, everyone. It's really great to be with you. And I love that going once, going twice, because as I was listening to all of what the individuals or your entire club is up to, I was thinking, wow, and then, I mean, you are incredibly active and impactful. I sort of knew that from a distance, but it's pretty amazing to be reminded of that today. So acknowledgement and kudos to you, props to you for being such leaders in your community. I know some of you individually, and some time ago I spoke at your club, but it really was some time ago. So it's really great to be with you. Under the heading of being inspired, and I think honestly, hearing that amazing roster of all that you do is both in the moment exhausting, but then inspiring. I do want to say that one of your guests today, Quanta, is one of those people who, when you hear all of the things that she's doing, you can say, wow, how could I keep up with that? And I'm so inspired. And you asked, I think before she came on, if and when there are opportunities to engage with the organization I represent, and I think you mean primarily NewGen Peacebuilders, what those opportunities look like. And I said mentoring. And Quanta has actually been a mentor of teams with us for several years. And each year she shows up and works with a different team on an entirely different peace project and remains sort of steady Eddie, tremendous influence on these youth-led peace projects. So I didn't want to really start without making sure I acknowledge that. Today, I get to talk about something really interesting that's very newsworthy and sort of ties into some things that I think you've been talking about in your club recently. For instance, I understand that you actually had Ramchandra Guha as a speaker presenter, and that Peter Kyle was somehow tied into that opportunity to hear from him. That's perfect, because what I want to talk to you today is what was just mentioned in my bio, and that's Rotary Zones 33-34 having just introduced, officially announced, though it's been in the planning stages for some time, the largest local peace building initiative in the history of Rotary International. So ipso facto, being in North Carolina, being in District 7680, and you are in Zones 33-34, and that makes you part of, it connects you to, I'm going to say it again, the largest local peace building initiative in the history of Rotary International. It's called a Youth and Peace in Action, Engaging Young Community Peacebuilders. So that's where quite a bit of my attention is going to be in my remarks, but it really, whatever I'm going to say about that initiative links back to some connections with you actually, and the support that you have provided to peace education and peace building in Charlotte, in the past and in the recent past and in the current past. So I'm wondering, can I just see a show of hands, live hands, not reactions? Who was aware before that was said in my bio, before I raised my hand, that initiative, Youth and Peace in Action, is underway and officially announced in zones 33, 34?
Yeah, I also got to listen in on the announcement online, I think at 12:30 a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, when the three of you were presenting, Peter, you, and the gentleman from Outward Bound.
Outward Bound? Yes, so Ranjit, I think you're talking about Flavio Bolog. Yeah, great.
Exactly.
So that's great. So you're a little, you're as up to speed sort of as anyone. So that's tremendous. And I want to say that to be able to make an announcement like that in this day and age, with all of the challenges of the past year with COVID-19 and so on, was really energizing, I think, for a lot of people, and a lot of people who really care about youth and peace education. So I'm going to give everybody kind of the 50,000 foot view of what that announcement is and why it's so significant, but again, take you back to, well, how does this relate to you and your club? And I would say people like Quanta, your other guest, Myrna, who know a lot about our efforts with youth peace education in District 7682. 7680 also, as opposed to 7682. Okay, so a couple things. I was really, really listening hard to your invocation, and that, and hearing that invocation imbued with a reverence for the earth and a reverence for the planet that we're on. And if you're not aware of it, the most viewed docu-series right now on Apple TV is called The Year Earth Changed. And it's a beautiful, pretty short docu-series about what's actually happening in terms of its restoration and recovery during COVID-19. And it's astounding to see how quickly the earth recovers from being trampled on or not fully respected. So I highly recommend that. I think it is very relevant to talking about peace or peace education, because in the world I live in, which focuses on providing peace education to young people and primarily high school students and early university students, it used to be that when you asked them what the #1 focal area for them in terms of interest and concern was with relationship to peace, they would say human rights. 2 years ago, protection of the environment for them superseded human rights in the programs that we run, and or they have begun to say a clean environment is a human right. And so therefore they see a direct connection between protecting the earth and peace. So I was very cognizant of your invocation. I'm also cognizant that in making the announcement on April 7th that Rotary Zones 33, 34 was committing to a high level of youth peace education in the 21-22 year, Peter Kyle, the Rotary International Director, who you've heard from, said something really significant. He said the support is both engagement at the local level from Rotarians who are great social mobilizers. And I think your reference to polio is a perfect example. It's one of the great case studies of social mobilization for change where Rotary plays a key role. He said that's part of this announcement, but also he announced that the zones with districts collectively were committing $500,000 to peace education, training, and mentoring for high school students, youth service club members, and teachers in the coming year. And he was able to say that because for the first time, an initiative has been born from inside Rotary, funded and supported by Rotarians in a collection of districts. So for the past year and this planning stages that I mentioned, 22 of the 31 districts in Rotary Zones 33, 34, and notably, there are 28 districts in the United States alone. The others are in the Caribbean and 3 countries in South America. came together and said, we collectively want to support peace education for young people in the US. Now, that announcement, as I'm sure you're aware, April 7th, comes not too long after we all witnessed the terrible incidents at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. as an expression of, or sort of an unfortunate outcome of the incredible level of polarization that has been present in the United States and is still present. And I want to note that that's significant, the relationship between these, the timing of those incidents in Washington, D.C. and this announcement from Peter Kyle on April 7th are coincidental. It's not that incidents like these occurred and then Rotary Zones 33, 34 decided to get in action. In fact, Rotary has a 100+ year history of advocating for peace. So it begins pre-World War I. It continues in Rotary's advocacy for peace pre-World War II. It continues when Rotary becomes one of the founding members, you could say, had a significant seat at the table when the United Nations was being founded. Today, we have more than 40 Rotary representatives at the United Nations in one way or another. It continues when Rotary establishes the Rotary Peace Fellows program, and I'm fortunate enough to say I was the first Rotary Peace Fellow from our district in 2013. And there are now about 1,500 of us in the world. And this announcement builds on that legacy by saying, and wait, we collectively can make peace education available to young people in our communities across zones 33, 34. So it was coincidental, the timing, but the timing could not be more important in this regard. I just said the growing history of polarization in the United States, when those incidents occurred at the Capitol, Rotary has a strategic partner called the Institute for Economics and Peace, and I am one of their ambassadors. And the CEO of the Institute for Economics and Peace, a world-renowned global research and think tank, rarely makes public commentary about events. And he put out a notice the morning after saying, this level of upset was predictable, entirely predictable, because if you look at the data, the level of uncivil discourse in the United States and the degree of polarization, political polarization in the United States, didn't start yesterday. There were signs of it in 2006, and it's been growing since then. And it is going to take some real positive muscle power to overcome that level of polarization. Soon after, there was a report note released, and this was really about 2 weeks ago, called Educating for Democracy. And Educating for Democracy was a ginormous sort of research undertaking involving 200 scholars and practitioners that basically proposed, if we're serious about creating a sustainable culture of peace and overcoming some of these divides in the US, then one of the things we really have to do is double down, triple down on the de-emphasis of civics education in the United States and find new and fresh and innovative ways to engage young people, not just in knowing how our governmental systems work, but engaging them in addressing issues in our communities at the local, regional, and on a national scale. So all of this adds up to this statement from this initiative from Rotary Zones 33, 34 could not be more timely, more appropriate, or more aligned with the history and legacy of Rotary as being an advocate for peace, but also being engaged with young people around the world, whether that's RI or RILA or Interact, or perhaps I would even say, well, in District 7680, SFTL, NewGen Peacebuilders, and you know, a number of other youth engaged projects and initiatives that Rotary takes on. Now, here's where I want to say, and you know, whether you were aware of it or not, you have been an essential player in this initiative, because this Rotary Zones 33, 34 initiative grew out of and is grounded in the work of NewGen Peacebuilders, which started in Charlotte in District 7680 in 2014 with 3 high schools and 18 students. Currently, we are completing the most recent annual cohort in Charlotte in District 7680 with nearly 100 high school students and mentors completing peace projects. And I really invite you all to attend the annual celebration that we do. Of course, this one will be virtual on May 15th, where you will get to hear the stories of how even in this impossible COVID-19 situation, where all of the workshops had to be done virtually online, all of the peace projects were done virtually, guided by mentors like Quanta. Mentors and students, for the most part, never even got to meet. Many of the students working on these projects had never met. Some have, but others hadn't. And somehow these teams persevere to create projects like projects to bring art therapy workshops to young people in foster care situations based on evidence that there's a connection between art therapy, reducing stress and trauma, and creating a sense of peace for young people in foster care. Projects like, well, Quanta's involved in this one, students recognizing that there's an incredible level of upset and discomfort and fear when students are coming out of high school, heading into university or careers, and they have no insight in how to manage their finances. And particularly for young people in risky situations, could find themselves living very, very difficult situations without that kind of knowledge. So a team has created a peace project to start bringing financial literacy to their school and other schools in their area. The list goes on and on. Over the period of time since NewGen Peacebuilders started in 2014 to today, just in this district alone, over 500 students will have been certified as NewGen Peacebuilders, having completed peace education and peace projects. I'm going to, at the end of my remarks or right after, I usually like slides and video. Today, I decided to just talk to you. I'm going to give you a 4.5-minute video that illustrates peace projects from last year, which clubs in our district supported. And I'm also going to give you the latest testimonial of one Tucker Stillman. One Tucker Stillman is the brother of Beckett Stillman. They're both students from South Meck High School. Beckett has gone on to university at NCSU. Tucker is about to graduate. Beckett won a full ride scholarship to NCSU. He's a chemical engineering student, and one of the reasons he was selected for that scholarship, so the university tells us, is because he's trained as a peace builder. Tucker just got a full ride scholarship to UNC Chapel Hill. He won a Moorhead Cain fellowship. He'll start in 2021. 4% of the nominees for that scholarship receive the Moorhead Cain, full ride scholarship to UNC. The university wrote and said, he's an amazing young man, but the university said one of the reasons he got that scholarship was because he's a trained NewGen peace builder. He continued as an intern. He's worked on projects relating the environment piece. He's gone to Washington as an advocate for youth and peace building. They could not imagine a young man like Tucker would not be recognized with a Moorhead Cain. So the moral of my story is, because clubs like you decided to invest some of your precious, precious, precious energy and contributions in a program like this, a program that started with 3 high schools and 18 students in Charlotte in 2014, with the idea that it's possible to bring some of the frameworks and tools that Rotary Peace Fellows normally get access to our local communities, has grown and grown and grown in District 7680. And then with zones 33, 34 in this initiative, this year, the goal across zones 33, 34 is to engage 875 schools and youth service organizations. Depending on how you do the numbers, somewhere between 35,000 and 50,000 high school students, resulting in about 500 peace projects, and then a celebration for all of the communities that are involved in May 2022 that could number in the tens of thousands of people observing the impact of young people and peace education in their communities. So the thing I love about Rotary, and I get a little weepy at this moment, and then I promise I'll stop. The thing I love about Rotary is, just like with polio, when one person decades ago said, I think we should start to focus on this as an area of concern for Rotary. When you see what that's grown into, just a little idea that young people in our community should have access to peace education has become the largest local peace building initiative in the history of Rotary International. And thank you, Ranjit, for tuning into the announcement, because it was really a moment for Rotary to be proud.
Absolutely. No, remarkable. Absolutely remarkable work. And, just we know our future is in a better place with kids going through this. So, Patricia, did you want to show the video first, or did you want to? Why don't we do that and then take Q&A? How about that?
Oh, I'm going to send it to you so that everybody can just look at it on their own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So let's take questions then. If you want to just raise your hand or put it up in the chat, and we'll go ahead and recognize you. So while people are preparing their questions, talk to me a little bit about the Outward Bound, Peace Gen, and how all that fits together. Will there be retreats? Will there be workshops like the FFTL? How will this all come together? What will the partnership look like outside of the the peace projects?
Oh, yes. Well, that is actually a great question. You know what? I will put actually I'll send you 3 videos. One is Tucker Stillman and his testimonial. One is an example from Charlotte in 2020. And one is the 9.5-minute overview of youth peace in action in and of itself. But that's a great point. So think of youth peace in action as an initiative that spans a year. And the idea, of course, is to sustain it in the future. But it has 4 parts. It has on September 21, which is International Peace Day, a live stream event that will also be recorded that introduces participating schools and students to the role of young people in peace building, has case examples, recognizes International Peace Day, which of course is always an important day for Rotary because of our connection with the United Nations. And that's where the International Day of Peace was born. So that will happen. And there will be a viewing guide, which participating schools can make available to teachers and students to reflect on what they see in the live stream and recorded event. Then, for the first time, there will be an online peace education certification that students at participating schools can go through. And this online peace education curriculum is mobile friendly and involves what we call the 4 C's. So there's content. So you can take the content asynchronously, on your own time. Challenges, like a 21-day challenge to identify peace happening in your community. Community, so that over time you'll actually, let's say you care about hunger and you live in Charlotte, North Carolina, but there are students working on hunger in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can be part of a common community, sharing ideas. And then case studies. So case studies of young people who have actually done peace education projects. Then many, many students will have the opportunity to complete that certification and then apply for the Peace Project training and projects in the spring. Many districts will have as many as 250 to 500 students who can actually go through that Peace Project experience in the spring, which will be a very, very short training that builds on your work having completed the curriculum, and then you do your peace projects. And then in May 2022, there will be a virtual celebration of all of the peace projects, and communities will actually have a chance to tune in, but even be facilitated to talk about, so what does it mean that there were 500 peace projects done across the zones? What did we learn from them? How should we be supporting peace education in the future? So think of it as the NewGen Peacebuilders program as a core element, but these other elements have been built around it.
Thank you. Rhett, if you don't, go ahead and unmute yourself, Rhett. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Patricia. Patricia, I had the honor of introducing you the last time you were at our Rotary Club. And, two things stuck with me. One was the initiative mothers throughout the world had come together. I'd like to hear a little more about that. And also, my question is the Peace and Conflict Resolution Program between Chapel Hill and Duke. I'd like to know how those programs did throughout the world this past year with COVID. I think there were 7 places in the world that had those educational opportunities to get master's degree. Is this old stuff or is it still?
No, these are 3 great questions in one. And yes, I remember your invitation and for me to speak and your introduction. And so what's being made reference to here is, again, I live in a couple of worlds. One world is peace education. The other is this world of schools and teacher training in several countries in East Africa that have experienced extreme conflict over the years. And in fact, one of them is South Sudan, and one of the former lost boys of South Sudan, James Lubomijak, came to Charlotte as a refugee, ended up graduating from UNC Charlotte, and was our country director for a while with some of our schools in South Sudan. About that, I do want to say this is really kind of a momentous week, because the schools in, we work in 3 countries, Uganda, South Sudan, and Rwanda. Literally 3 days ago, the government announced that the schools can open in South Sudan for the first time in 14 months. So while we have had our many, many challenges here in the United States, God bless our education system. God bless our teachers. God bless the communities that we have that care about education. Because imagine, in the poorest country in the world, with maternal health rates that are among the highest in the world, that has experienced 5 decades of conflict and civil war, that is doing its best as the newest country in the world to come out of it. Imagine what happens when your schools are literally closed for 14 months. No one has gone to school in South Sudan in the last 14 months. I think it's just a reminder of the broad impact of COVID-19 and how the challenge is very country by country. But then you asked about the connection with Duke. In fact, for everybody's benefit, Duke and the University of North Carolina are 2 of the 7 peace centers that Rotary supports with Rotary Peace Fellows in the world. And just this past weekend, they had their annual event to reveal and celebrate the work of the students who are in the master's programs there. It's been challenging. So for instance, I was in the professional program. There was one cohort that was delayed a year. There was a one cohort where students were actually stuck in country and couldn't continue their graduate studies, but also couldn't go home for a while. But what I am glad to say is the Rotary Peace Fellows program proceeds apace. There was just an announcement in the last 24 hours, actually, of a very large contribution to the endowment for the peace centers. And so there is a plan for the Rotary Peace Centers to keep growing over the next 10 to 15 years, because there have been very intense analyses done of the impacts of the peace fellowships that have proved very positive. And so we can now say, you can say this to your friends, that Rotary is, if not it's one of the largest funders of graduate and professional peace education in the world.
Wow.
Remarkable, remarkable. Congratulations. Any other questions? Yes, Kelly, please. Yes, Kelly, I can see you. Go ahead.
So this is like a little side note, but I was a brand new Rotarian the last time you spoke. And so NewGen Peacebuilders was the first Rotary organization I ever donated money to. So if for whatever that's worth, I've done a lot of work in peace building myself in my professional life. And so I'm really interested to know, I believe what I read a long time ago was that the students choose their own projects. So how do they get ideas and do they ever take like suggestions on things that, partnerships they could with organizations locally they could work with? And you get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, well, so we take them through a process where they really learn to relate what they care about. So sort of where their passion is and where they see a need. But then they really get taken through a process of an analysis of, well, where is there a conflict or where is there violence? How is it not being addressed, or how could you build on it? It's a process we take them through. And then support them along with their mentors in terms of designing their peace projects. And what's interesting is sometimes the original idea that a team has ends up being seen to fruition. Sometimes the project changes dramatically, because one of the things that happens is, and this will come as no surprise to you, is young people are hearing all the same information you're hearing. They're hearing what issues are present and real for us right now, where we should put our attention. And so we've noticed over the past 8 years that at one time young people would say terrorism was their greatest concern. Well, that's because that's what was in the news and that's what was all around them. But in terms of really being able to work on a project in that realm, that might not be particularly realistic, right? We went through a phase, I don't mean phase as a pejorative, I mean a period when we were all hearing about homelessness. That was on their radar screens. So we worked through this process, and we really try to do an intersection of passion, need, and skills. Yes, we are constantly seeking opportunities to connect them with local nonprofits, because one of the principles is you do not have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, it can be counterproductive to reinvent the wheel, because often in some of these issues, there are many, many, many organizations and people working on something. So it is better to tap into and be connected with and build on some things that organizations are, already involved in. So a great example of that is the financial literacy case. The students had to investigate, well, is Junior Achievement already providing this in some way? Is Bank of America providing this in some way? What about Student U, and so on? And in fact, we say nirvana happens when the students get connected with a need, an idea, and it can be sustained in some way. It's not necessary. We try to say a project can be completed in a certain period of time. But for instance, this year, you'll see if you come to the celebration, there's a team that ended up getting Myers Park and Hidden Valley Primary School connected. And there's already good work going on at Hidden Valley. But the principal and the administrators got really excited about being able to sustain a mentor program that fills a particular niche that they don't have filled, that will be guided by a woman who works in Charlotte, who's their mentor, who's a tutor, a trained educator, et cetera, et cetera. And there can be a sustained mentoring program that has these young people from Myers Park serve as real role models with these young people at Hidden Valley. So that's a long-winded way of answering your question. And thank you for your early support, you visionary you.
I have one more question. If you want to be a mentor, how do you get involved?
You just send us an email and say, hey, I want to know more.
Okay, give me 1 year. I got to get through I got to get through my presidency, right, Ranjit?
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Absolutely. And we may make your presidency 2 years if you don't watch out. All right, excellent. Romy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Yes.
Yes, my question is there a place to get information about what the mentorship commitment would involve exactly?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, we have it written up, okay? No, because of this new extension of the Youth and Peace and Action Initiative, that may in some ways change the timing or the commitment. So for instance, a peace warrior, a superstar like Quanta, will tell you that in the way we have run the program historically, it's a real-time commitment, because it was all live, it took place over 12 weeks and so on. What we're doing next year with all this experience under our belts is taking some of that and putting it in the online curriculum, shortening the mentor commitment to really focus on the peace projects, and letting the mentors be able to actually study up on the role online versus having to attend live. So the answer is yes, we have a traditional role. No, we'll want to give you a new description of the role for 21-22. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll send information to your club, and every time it percolates and it's ripe and ready, I'll send it to your club.
Thank you.
Hmm.
We have time for one last question. Who wants to be the last question here? All right. No follow-ons. No. Well,
Ranjit,
sorry?
you're not asking.
Yes.
You're not asking me the elephant in the room question. Do you want me
Oh,
to give it
sorry.
to you?
Yes, please. Please.
So the
Who's the
elephant.
elephant?
All right, the elephant in the room question is, you just had a speaker who's an expert on Gandhi and peace, yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, and so the elephant in the room question is, has it ever occurred to you? And my answer is, I invoke Gandhi all the time because he is one of the first modern peace builder leaders to ever say anything like the following. It's one of his most famous statements. To reach real peace in the world, you have to begin with the children. And then Dr. King drew on that and became an advocate for putting young people at the center of peace building. And now the UN has said in various resolutions, if you really want sustainable cultures of peace in the future, you have to provide peace education to young people.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you addressed the elephant in the room. I apologize for not knowing that, but we did have a lot of Gandhi last week. But yes, excellent. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to make a donation, of course, to your wonderful new project. We love to support NewGen, and we love to support this new project that you and Peter Kyle have dreamed up. And we're excited to be a part of the volunteer opportunities as well. So with that, and we look forward to, I'll send you an invitation if you can make it this coming Friday at 5:30 at Ladder Park. We'd love to have you join us. I'll get you an invitation for that as well.
Hey, Ranjit.
And yes,
All right,
go ahead.
thank
Sorry.
you.
Can I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
I wanted to just follow up on Patricia's comments about instilling in our youth the ability to function as peace builders. And I wanted to just bring up for the awareness of everyone, Patricia, I'm sure you remember this, but our club and the International Club sponsored a peace and conflict resolution 2 years ago. And one of the participants in our panel discussion was a NewGen peace builder by the name of Alicia Bush. And she is just phenomenal, and I think a testament to our world being in pretty good hands as long as we have young people like this carrying the torch for peace and conflict resolution.
I am glad you have recalled Alicia. And in fact, Alicia and her sister Lauren have continued to be very active peace builders, including a project Lauren did in a summer internship with the Centers for Disease Control, helping study the relationship between healthcare around the world and peace building. So I am so glad you said that, Kevin.
Wow.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And with that, we are going to move towards our four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?